Please put your hands together for Amory Jane.
I think there's a part of me that always wanted to have a family. When I was in my early 20s, it was just kind of a far-off, abstract idea. When I was in my early 20s, it was all about finding myself and getting a good education. But of course, a good education costs money. So when I applied to grad school, I was looking around for jobs, and I was discovering that in order to make money, I would have to work a lot of hours. Working a lot of hours doesn't go along with grad school. So how could I make a lot of money and not work a lot of hours? No, this is not a story about me stripping or making porn. I actually found an ad on Craigslist to be an egg donor. So I applied to be an egg donor and I was accepted. Now money was one of the motivating factors, but the bigger thing that really made me want to be an egg donor was how much I would be able to help someone. I would be able to help someone who couldn't have a family have a family. And that was really important to me, because family is just very important to me. So I was an egg donor for about 3 years. 6 successful egg donations later, my ovaries retired. They were like, no more of that. So I didn't even think about the fact that I was a baby mama to 8 kiddos out in the world. 8. There were a couple sets of twins. Didn't even think about it until one day I got a letter in the mail. Now the letter was from one of my recipient families. It was one of my Australian families, a mom, a dad, and a set of newborn twins. And they were just these little naked mole rats. That's what newborn babies look like. They look like naked mole rats. And I was like, oh, wow, this is so cool, because I knew what it took to get them here. It took me taking a bunch of hormones, injecting myself daily with fertility medications, weeks and weeks of pain and bloating, and then a surgery that removed my eggs from my ovaries. My eggs were fertilized with sperm in a lab, and those embryos were inserted into the mother's womb. 9 months later, she gave birth, and whoa, science is really cool. And that's what I thought when I saw those babies. Science is really cool. Then, sometime in the last year or so, I got another letter from the same family. But some time had gone by. So this time, when I opened up the card and saw the photos, something different happened. These were no longer little naked mole rats. These were almost adult-looking kids. And their eyes, well, they had big blue eyes, just like me. I looked down and I saw my eyes staring back at me. And something happened in me. It was like my uterus had been sleeping. And suddenly, when I saw those eyes looking up at me, it woke up. It was like, oh, hey! Oh, whoa, what are those? Yeah, I want one of those. Give me a baby. Yeah, I want a baby now. And my brain was like, no way, we're not doing that. We're not having a baby. There's no reason to have a baby. It's not logical to do that. And then my fallopian tubes are like, logic, right, no. Once you get baby fever, logic has nothing to do with it. And my ovaries were like, seriously, fallopian tubes are right, Google it. I Googled it, baby fever is a real thing, and very few people go back once they get it. So as much as my brain tried to fight my reproductive organs, that chorus of reproductive organs was so loud and pushy, and they would not give up. So I had to do it. Well, I didn't have to do it, but I had to do it. You know what I mean? So I sat down with my husband and had the talk. I was like, hey honey, I want to start a family. And at first, he was hesitant because, you know, all the logical things. But he came around to the idea. And we were ready to go ahead with the making a family plan. There was just one more person I needed to talk to. That person was my boyfriend. Yes, I have a boyfriend and a husband. We're polyamorous. We've all been together for a few years. My boyfriend and I have been together for about 2 years, and even though he hasn't been with me as long as I've been with my husband, he's a big part of my life. And I wanted him to be in on the conversation about having a family. So I sat down with him to talk about it too, and I at first thought he was going to be terrified and run away, like, this is crazy. How do you make a family with 3 people? But he wasn't afraid. He actually was pretty excited about it. He grew up Mormon and had a lot of younger siblings, and he was used to having, oh yeah, Mormons. So he was used to having a lot of kids running around. The stereotype is usually pretty true about that. A lot of kids in those families. So he was like, oh, little ones running around, that sounds cool. So there we were, the three of us, ready to go ahead with the Make a Human 3.0 game plan. 3.0? I don't know what that means. Anyway, it sounded cool and scientific, and here we are at OMSI. Thought I'd throw it in there. So that was our plan. Let's make a family. But how do you make a family with 3 people? So we sat down and we thought about it. Now I know one way to make a family with 3 people because I had done it before. My eggs plus sperm and another woman's uterus made a baby that had 3 parents. But when you have 2 sperms and 1 egg, it doesn't quite work the same. So what we decided is it made the most sense for my husband and I to actually make the baby because we've been together for 7 years. It'd be much easier to explain to the world, to the doctors, to our family, anybody who asked. Legally, it just seems simpler, at least for the first kid, to make the baby with my husband. So we did what anybody would do. We had a lot of sex. Banging, plowing, bam, bam, all the time, unprotected, no more pulling out. Our old method for a while there was, where you pull out and you call it spray and pray. This time, we actually stayed in and actually prayed about it. But, months went by and that wasn't enough. It wasn't working. So I decided to get really serious about it. All right, I'm gonna do my research. So I started tracking my ovulation, peeing on sticks every morning to see where I was at in my cycle. I started doing this app. You can track your cycle and take your temperature and all this stuff online. So you have this app to keep track of everything. If anybody in this room has ever tried to make a baby, maybe you know about these things. Suddenly it becomes less sexy. Sex becomes less sexy. I had to do things like check my cervical mucus. Now, ew, that is not a fun phrase to say, mucus in general, but then you add cervix to it, it's just that's not a good phrase. So sex was becoming slightly less sexy, but still, that's what you do when you're trying to make a family. Again, it wasn't working. We tried for months and months. I was starting to feel like there was something really wrong with me. I was feeling broken. It's like every time I would get my period, this huge wave of disappointment would wash over me. And it got to the point where sometimes I would just start crying because it wasn't happening. And I thought it was going to be so easy because I had golden eggs, right? My eggs had helped 6 other women get pregnant. Their dreams came true, and my dreams weren't coming true. So I wanted to get radical. What could I do to get radical? I went online, Google, and I searched for radical ways to make a baby. I'm terrible at Google searching. Radical ways to make a baby. It brought up some strange things, but I found some forums, and one of the suggestions was watch porn. And I'm like, well, I can do that. I can watch porn. Specifically, the kind of porn that they say you should watch are threesome porns that feature 2 penises and 1 vagina. Because, now the theory behind this is that deep in the caveman brain, when one penis sees another penis near a vagina, the first penis is like, no, that's mine. This is the theory. You can read about it. So, sperm competition, okay? It's like normally sperm are just, lazy. They're like stoners. They're sitting on the couch. Yeah, I'll get up, I'll fertilize the egg, after I eat this bag of Fritos. It's cool. But when you put some other sperm in the same room, it's like, oh, toss aside the bong, get up, and swim toward those eggs. One of my partners was telling me earlier that that's actually what they do to train horses. They don't give them Fritos and bongs, but if they're training a horse, you want to put the horse next to another horse because they'll have this inherent sense of competition and they'll run a lot faster if they have another horse. It's like they're showing off in front of each other, and that's how you can train them to go as fast as possible. So I was like, okay, we're gonna watch a porn, and it's gonna make my husband's sperm just go super fast, and they're gonna be total fighters. I'm just gonna punch through my cervix on in. That sounds unpleasant. But I was really excited. But trying to find high quality threesome porn, that is a task, I will tell you what. Trying to not be disgusted by one of the people in the threesome was like, next. I was just not finding 3 people who I was attracted to. So, I got a radical idea, like an actual radical idea. Instead of watching threesome porn, how about I just have a threesome? Right? 2 penises, 1 vagina, in real life. So of course I had to sit my partners down again, and I'm like, hey, remember how I talked about having a family? I got another great idea for you. What about we all, have a threesome? And this wasn't the first time we had a threesome. We'd had a threesome before, some fun, spontaneous threesomes while we were camping, some sexy, go with the flow hookups after a party, but an actual pre-planned threesome. This was a new thing for us, but we figured out the exact day to do it based on my ovulation calendar. And they came, they were both there, and I was like, all right, I want you here, and I want you here. Now, the way that I think this should go down is we could do some configuration of oral for a while, and then at some point I need to insert the fertility lube, because you have to use special lube for fertility, because some normal lubes can slow down the sperm or kill the sperm. So I actually, wanted to insert the fertility lube and make sure that had 15 minutes to set in and properly moisturize me. So this is nothing like the threesomes of the past, where it's really spontaneous and sexy and exciting. It's kind of this big concert that we have to rehearse for. So I insert the lube with a little applicator, and I'm laying on the bed, and I'm like, okay, how about you put your penis in my mouth? One of you. Doesn't matter which. One of you, and then the other one can maybe give me a hand job. So we're figuring it out, and I'm like, okay, just make sure, husband, don't spill any of that seed, and boyfriend, don't get any of the seed on me right now, because we don't want to have questionable paternity. So let's be careful with this here. And after a while, we start getting into the groove. It's feeling less ridiculous. It's starting to actually feel sexy. And some time goes by, and pretty soon they're just both fucking me, which is awesome. I've got my boyfriend in my ass and my husband in my vagina. Double penetration. You didn't know we were going to talk about that at OMSI. And they're like, oh, yeah, this is really exciting. And I'm just like, yeah, get that sperm, come on, buddies. We're cheering, we're all getting really excited. And they're, pumping away, and pretty soon everyone's just coming all over the place. Not all over the place, inside of me. Keep it in there, don't let it leave. After we all have orgasms, I'm just like, neither of you move. We gotta plug up these holes, we gotta keep sperms in. Anything that escapes will be a baby that's not gonna happen. Stakes are high here. We gotta lay here for 10 minutes just without moving. So we're laying there, and we're being very quiet. And the dog jumps up on the bed. Well, because the dog knows you leave the room when sex is happening, but when it gets quiet, it means it's okay. You can come back on the bed. So the dog's up on the bed, and my partners are inside of me. And we're all like hoping this is gonna make a family. These sperm are gonna get to my eggs, and we're gonna create a life. Because this is what I want. This is what I've been wanting for as long as I can remember. But then I look down, and my dog is snoring peacefully at my boyfriend's feet. And my husband's holding me, and they're both smiling at each other. And I realize it doesn't matter what happens. I already have my family. Thank you.